It's time for your daily dose of all things Chicago sports. This is the Daily Score. Now, here's your host, Mark Grote.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Daily Score. I am Mark Grote. Hope your weekend was excellent. Mine was great, but I'm ready to get back to the business after the Bears bye week and the Bears staring down a home game against Detroit next. And, this is going to sound sort of crazy to say about the Bears. Things kind of are going well for this team right now in terms of their play on the field. And we'll get to the big picture stuff as we always do on the Daily Score and when we're talking about the Bears. But this team is playing well. I mean, not just because they beat Minnesota. They did. The Detroit loss was pretty horrid at the end in terms of the choke, but there was a lot of good things to take away. And I will say, in terms of the Minnesota game, the defense is what obviously shined. The offense, field goals were great. Cairo Santos probably should have a little more love for Cairo Santos and the things that he's done and did in that game. But yeah, it was defense came to play, and that is not as important as getting the offense right with the Bears, but it's pretty damn important that we saw some defensive improvement this year. I mean, we kind of have pushed that off to the side, but it's hugely important, and we're starting to see it. Then the Carolina win the week before that. So, and just positionally, the offensive line is coming along. DJ Moore is doing his thing. We'll talk about Justin Fields in a second. But, the defense is playing well. Jalen Johnson, the cornerbacks are playing well. The linebackers are playing really well. So you suddenly have position groups on both sides of the ball that are playing well. Look, there's still a lot of things that are bad. I just talked about them. The offense couldn't get the ball into the end zone. That's a problem in the Minnesota game. The defense collapsed against Detroit. But if we're really looking at this team on a whole as an evaluation of whether the team is improving or not, this is a team that is improving and probably too slow. And there's probably some games they should have won, sitting at 4-8. But this is the point. We have arrived at a point where the Bears are capable of winning games. We saw how they played against Detroit the first time. They're home against Detroit Sunday, so it's not inconceivable that you beat Detroit. Detroit's still better than you, but it's not inconceivable. At Cleveland. Cleveland is 7-3? Going to be different by the time this airs, but that's a winnable game. It's a winnable game. Certainly, home games against Arizona and Atlanta should be win. Bears will be favored in those games, and then at Green Bay is kind of a crapshoot. I mean, it's hard to pick the Bears when they play at Lambeau. It just is, but it's time to look at the schedule in terms of not just what Justin Fields does, but there's some wins to be had. And does this team continue in the right direction? And I'm not saying they have flipped the switch. I'm just saying that this team has improved, and this is the Bears are 4-8. Here they are after the bye. Let's see what they do. They're going to be fresher. Whatever the bye does for you, they're going to have it. So it ought to be interesting. And I know that I am not necessarily rooting for wins because they're not. I still don't see the Bears as a playoff team. I'm not getting carried away here. But it's whatever happens. And I'm not going to, I don't want to follow the Bears and look at the Bears in terms of they got to lose because, draft picks. Whatever happens. Let Carolina do the losing for you. They're doing just fine. All right. Some other things I wanted to get to. Some sound that I wanted to get to last week that I did not get to because I missed at least one day. But let's talk about something that Peter King said. And the reason I want to bring this up, let me back up. Troy Aikman had said on the Parkins and Spiegel show that he believes, his guess, not reporting, that the Bears probably know by now, as in Ryan Poles, let's just use his name. Ryan Poles probably knows by now if Justin Fields is their guy, if he is their quarterback, as we all sit here and evaluate these final games, now final 5 games for the Bears. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Final 5 games of the season. So Troy Aikman believes they got to know. Peter King had a different view of it.
Do you get the sense that this is a genuine evaluation period for Fields? He's 2 games in to his 7-game stint with a decent roster, a good enough roster to get some wins. Do you believe it's a legit evaluation opportunity for him?
I think it's absolutely a legit. Let me just say this. I will be absolutely shocked if even in a private moment after the season that Ryan Poles tells anybody, yeah, I decided on Fields around Thanksgiving. He wasn't coming back. First of all, it just, as I said, it just makes no sense when you're in the middle of a season that's really important, because you've said all along, we need to find out with certainty if Justin Fields is our guy going forward. And why would you do that basing it on 12 games? You don't base it on 12 games, especially because Fields missed some. You base it on 17. So I'm sure that Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, the McCaskies, Kevin Warren, they are saying, hey, let's see how it goes. We got plenty of time. We got plenty of chances to see how it goes. Now, the one weird thing about that game last night is, and I think probably part of this is trying to protect Justin Fields, because it's clear in a game like that last night, that, they want to make sure that they're going to keep Justin Fields upright. And so he had the ball in his hands 49 times, actually 52 times. Okay. 12 runs, 37 passes, 3 sacks. So that's a lot of reliance on Justin Fields. And I think when I think about how these games go, I think part of that is we want to see a lot in Justin Fields right now. We need to make some judgments. We're trying to win the game, of course, but we need to make some judgments on Justin Fields.
Yep. And he's talking about the Minnesota game. If your brain is just all like trying to figure out, wait a minute, last night. Yeah, no, that's the Minnesota win, the win that didn't feel like a win. But now that I'm a couple days away from him, like, you know what I got out of that game? Not that the offense. Well, I did get that. The offense couldn't put 6 on the board. What really the takeaway from that game is that the Bears defense was awesome. That's like in 2 more weeks, that'll be it. Like, I probably will have forgiven the other sins of that game. And the biggest takeaway is, damn, defense is really playing well. But anyway, Peter King looking at it in a much bigger way than maybe Troy Aikman is. So I just thought it was interesting to hear 2 well-respected voices disagreeing at different times, both on the radio station, and Peter King, also a guest of Parkins and Spiegel right here on 670 The Score. One more from Peter King, who also believes that polls should be not only still evaluating, but like really, really rooting for the guy.
Is the Bears' job more attractive to coaching candidates with Justin Fields and a boatload of draft capital and top 10 assets that they've added, or Caleb Williams?
That's one of the things that I think is very hard to know at the end of November. And I'll tell you why, because if I were Ryan Poles, I'd really be pulling so hard for Justin Fields. Because if I were Ryan Poles, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to trade the first pick in the draft. And I'd like to trade it to a team that gives me 3 1s, including one in this year's, say, top 8. Okay. And because in my opinion, we talked about this maybe 2 months ago, but in my opinion, I think there are those probably college quarterbacks, agents, parents of quarterbacks who look at Chicago and say, they have not had a good quarterback, since troglodytes walked planet Earth. So is that a dinosaur, or is that some phony thing?
Oh, you're okay. It's Sid Luckman was playing when troglodytes were around. You're good.
But my whole point is, I think, the longer I watch football, the longer I say, look what happened. Bryce Young's not a bad football player. He just isn't. But every time he goes back to pass, 5 guys who are a lot bigger than he is start chasing him, and nobody blocks him. And that's a vast oversimplification. But watch the average play of the Carolina Panthers this year and tell me that this poor kid has a prayer. He doesn't. So my whole point is, wouldn't it be nice if you had 3 1s or maybe 2 1s and 2 2s this year, or whatever? If you could just literally build a team and then worry about your quarterback. I know nobody wants to do that, but just tell me, if you draft a quarterback now and your offensive line is still sort of shaky, you tell me, is that right? Is it good? Is it smart? I'd rather build the team on out right now first.
That's interesting. Like, I think, summing it up, just get awesome with Justin Fields. I know we keep always talk, get him weapons, get awesome. Get, like, if you could, for your high draft picks, stock up on first round picks and trading, drafting Caleb Williams and trading Caleb Williams, like, and just build a monstrous team. Kind of like, I guess the closest blueprint would probably be San Francisco. Just get really good on both sides of the ball and have your Brock Purdy. But, Kyle Shanahan's also a difference maker, I think, as well. But I hear what he's saying. But guess what? No, we haven't had a quarterback ever. Okay. It's time for me to put away Jim McMahon. Sid Luckman didn't even exist. I think time's up. You know what I mean? Time's up on those guys. Jay Cutler, like, forget it. The Bears have never had a great quarterback, period. So while the idea was intriguing enough for me to want to play that for you on the podcast, I definitely still need the Bears to continue to take their shots at quarterback, as painful as this process has been for everybody. And may Justin Fields show make the turn and be magical and be that guy. But until I see that guy, I still want that guy. So that's where I stand on it. Thanks for listening to the podcast today. I appreciate everybody listening to and watching the Daily Score. And I appreciate my executive producer, Ray Diaz. I'm Mark Grote. I will talk to you tomorrow.